Hello and welcome to another CK3 tips and tricks video. Today we're going to be talking about how to succeed in the 1178 start date, and we're going to be doing that as Duke Bohemond III, the Stammerer of Antioch. Now the idea of this video isn't kind of to show you what's strong, what's maybe not as strong, basically how to approach the 1178 start date that maybe you might have to do things a little bit differently to other start dates, essentially how to succeed in this start date. Now the first thing we're going to dive into is defending is a lot easier than attacking in this start date. Specifically, why? Well, your cultures are relatively advanced, so you have the tech to be able to get in massive advantage in your holdings. For example, buildings like the Watchtower give you huge defender holding advantage +8 just on this alone. Again, we can straight away, just as soon as the game kicks off, go up to level 5 with +10 defender holding advantage. A lot of different buildings have this kind of mechanic. If we go to Hunting Grounds, this is quite a good kind of one. It can give a bit of eco, but you can go right all the way up to here again. We can straight away go to level 4, level 5 indeed as well. Get another additional +10 defender holding advantage. Another example of a building like this, if we go down to the bottom, Caravanserai. This is probably one of the best buildings actually in the game. We have a look, you get eco +7 per month on level 1, actually insane. You get defender holding advantage, really good. You get development growth percentage and tick in development growth, which is amazing. You also get men at arms maintenance and mercenary higher costs, which again isn't great, but it is still amazing considering it's there for the price of everything else. And we can straight up build up to level 5 again, an extra +10 advantage. Those 3 buildings, if you were to build them all to their max level, is +30 advantage. That is an insane amount of advantage. Bear in mind, most rulers will probably have between 10 and 20 when leading their armies, and unless they're maybe like a storyline character like Saladin, who will have maybe 30 pushing on 40. But even then, if you're sat in a holding here with +30 advantage and you've even got a half decent person leading your army, you may have a decent chance against someone like Saladin, who maybe, and even he's got a much bigger realm than me. That's, you can have an additional +10 advantage over him, which could be the difference between him winning or losing. Another example of a building that can take some, well, let's have a look to find some hills. Where's some hills? Give me some hills. Wetlands, no, you're not there. Where are you? I just had you a minute ago. Cosenza, yeah, here we go. Vegetable fields again. Hill farms. The hills, if you're on hills, you can get an extra +2 advantage. And stockades again. Hill forts, you can level them up to be another +8 defender advantage. This one's at level 4, admittedly, but if you're, there's lots of buildings essentially in this start date that can give you absolutely insane advantage as a defender, control territory advantage, and essentially this means smaller realms can succeed a lot easier than other start dates. Essentially, you can build a really tall playstyle where it makes it very easy to defend. So I could basically sit here as Antioch. If I was to max out all of my holdings to be very high in advantage, I could be pretty secure. Yes, Saladin might be a bit tricky with his 15,000 men, but if I'm able to just get a couple thousand men with a +40 advantage, as well as maybe a good ruler, yeah, they can throw thousands at me, but I'm going to be fine to just sit here with my 300-400% damage increase from the defender advantage. And that is one of the best ways of how to play in this start date, especially if you play as a smaller ruler, or even if you're playing within a empire or a vassalage and you're going to be playing as maybe one county, kind of playing tall. You can get even 1 or 2 of these of your building slots to be a plus advantage. You're not going to have that bad of a time at all. Secondly, we're going to be looking at culture. Now, culture, compared to other start dates, is a little bit more even across the board. Most people start off in the high medieval start date. Again, French culture we are actually one of the most advanced ones here, 14, 14, 10, including, straight off the bat, advanced bow making, which gives you crossbowmen and hoardings. And of course, we've got things like men at arms, such as heavy horse, which is very powerful. We look around the rest of the kind of Europe and the world. England, English isn't too far behind with 14, 14, 6, Franconian 7, Saxon 7, Occitanian also very high as well. We look at places like Sweden and Denmark, not that far behind, sit on 5 of 19. So it's a relatively even playing field, not too far behind, certainly nowhere near the earlier start date inequalities. We have a look at Egyptian. The balance between East and West in this start date is not as big as it was in other start dates. Egyptian is only just ahead of, actually it's kind of behind French at this point. Bedouin is behind. Yeah, all the Middle Eastern ones are kind of behind where the French, yeah, maybe the English and some of the German ones aren't as high up. But I mean, in the early start date, these would be nowhere near. We go to India especially, they are definitely behind a lot of Europe in this start date. Now, yes, again, the Han and the Yamato are going to be very strong, especially from the early medieval and tribal texts that they get access to. But, you know, they're not as strong as they were in other start dates. So essentially, Europe has caught up in this start date, at least in terms of technology in CK3. Again, how historically accurate that is up for debate. But Europe has caught up, especially French. French, in terms of culture, is very, very strong in this start. The head of culture is also quite good. Louis VII, the younger, has got a very good learning. So in the early game, the first few decades, French culture is really, really going to do well. And if you want to maybe get a strong culture, align with them, it's going to go very well. But bear in mind, not much of Europe is that far behind, especially people like the English or the Germans. They are right on their tailcoats. Even the Greeks, a little bit ahead, not as far ahead as they have been, and haven't actually got bow making yet. But they won't be far behind. Cisalpine have got bow making, again, crossbowmen, very, very strong men at arms. This tech inequality really puts in a big difference between feudal and non-feudal. We go to government types. Again, I have not got the Council of Septiossi, so all this is showing up to tribal for me rather than nomadic. But the difference between feudal and, for example, tribal is insane in this start date, at least. If we have a look at some cultures like the Sami culture, still in tribal 5 innovations, that's absolutely nothing compared to even their Swedish neighbours that are so much more. We just have a look at some random tribal Sami holding. Let's go back into this. Let's just have a look. They're stuck. Yeah, they're stuck with no income, and okay, they might get decent income. They might get decent bonuses for their men at arms, but they're gonna, at this point, they are completely outscaled. The tribals are absolutely outscaled. If you're gonna play as tribal, you're gonna have to play wide. You have to play very, very wide. It's gonna be very, very strong, especially economically. You're not gonna have a chance. We have a look at some of the major realms of kind of year, for example. HRV getting in 43 a month, France getting in 72 a month, England getting in 74 a month, even like Aragon 45 a month. The eco is completely off the charts. The amount of men at arms they can get. Again, this is Aragon. They're not even that big, really. Yeah, they've got 11,000 men. Caballeros, 500 caballeros, pikemen, trebuchets, knights. It's looking very, very bleak to beat anyone on their borders, to be completely honest. I think feudal, you've out-teched absolutely everyone. You've out-teched very well. Even again, with clan governments, still making really good money. So if you're playing somewhere tribal, like for example here in Africa, yeah, you've got. It's going to be a struggle to do some achievements in this start date, I can assure you. Now we're on to men at arms. You have a look at our men at arms. We of course have access to crossbowmen, which are very, very strong, and essentially could replace pikemen, because they counter heavy imp and heavy cav and archer cav, especially with the Mongols who are going to be turning up soon. They're very, very strong. Also, most cultures will have access to armoured horsemen as well in this, which of course they're good against archers and handgunners, but their real strength is in the 100 damage and the 35.3 toughness, well, 35 base, and that's just insane. That's insane, especially against tribal people who may not have this kind of tech. They're going to be unbeatable. Another notable one is trebuchets. You get access to trebuchets. A lot of people have them at this start date. A lot of people get them relatively soon into it. Bear in mind, they aren't the best in the world, and they're only they're quite good. They're probably one of the best sieging men at arms, but they only effective up to fort level 50. Now, this is not a problem for most of the map. There are some notable exceptions to the stuff that already start off at a high level. For example, Byzantium, Constantinople starts off at fort level 20. Will not be able to siege that. Effectively, the papacy in the Roma starts off at level 16. Again, you can tell the fort level over here, the castle. You can see here they've got +1 counter-capital concentric castle comes from level 3, and then you've got second curtain walls comes from the walls and tower buildings, and then they've got an extra Aurelian walls +3 from it being a special duchy building in Rome. And one of the other exceptions is Venezia, Venice as well with 18. Again, concentric castle, Zvinga from level 5, walls and towers. And then Doge's Palace +3 being the special building there. And then defensive measures again in from the, where are you? Where's defensive? That might be from the additional, yes it is, from the lifestyle. So there are some, in this case you can still siege them down, you will just need more men than the garrison. In most cases, again with Rome and Venice, that won't be too much of an issue. Again in Constantinople, 7,700 garrison, you need more men than that essentially to get any siege equipment, and of course some good perks like the engineer perk, siege engineer perk, which will give you better siege phase time, although your weapons won't do any kind of damage to the walls or anything. You will still get siege phases. It'll just be a lot longer, so you'll be able to sit there for a while. It's not going to be able to something you can blitz in like 20 days. It's going to take a little while to do that. The last tip that I'm going to give you is kind of some historical things. In this start date, the Black Death isn't that far away. Again, 13th century, of course, is the historical. And if you have the game rule historical on, it will come around then. Again, it'll only happen once, depending on what your game rules are, but it will happen about then. The other thing is the Mongols are coming. If we have a look over in where are we in the Mongol? Here we are over here. Temujin of the House of Borgin is actually a landed character you can play as. He, of course, will become Genghis Khan. So in about the early 13th century, the Mongols are going to start snowballing. So you're playing anywhere kind of on the map, on the eastern side of the map, you're going to be impacting them. So just be aware of that. Again, it could be a fantastic challenge. You may be absolutely banking on that happening. And this is, of course, depending on what game rules you've set for your game. But it's worth bearing in mind. Now, that's everything from me. If you've got any questions, anything clarifying, or any additions you would like to make, please let me know in the comments down below. I'll be looking at them, so if you've got any questions, please just let me know, and I'll give any clarifications that you need. But hope you found this helpful. I hope you found this useful, giving you maybe a bit of an edge in your next CK3 1178 campaign. But thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.